Hello, hello, hello. Jen and I are back for our second Highline episode.
Episode 2.
Happy to be talking to you guys. So, my goodness, there is a lot going on right now.
Busy.
This is going to be a very busy month coming up for us. We've got every morning, like after our group of guests leave, we do a little meeting with a recap of the week and what everybody thought went well, what things we could improve on. Usually it's just a big laugh session, and it's like we're just a bunch of hens in there. It gets pretty wild, but I think it was a pretty great success. Dinners and desserts, of course, were like over the top.
Amazing.
Too amazing. The guests, I think every one of them just got a heck of a lot out of it.
Yeah. It was really neat too because we had guests from all sorts of different backgrounds. We had a few doctors. We had a motocross racer. We had a man who was in the circus and has been in the circus since he was like 10 and is a director for it, has done some acting, some modeling. I mean, just an interesting character. So many good stories at the dinner table. But I think something that was really neat was no matter what background they came from and what they've experienced in their life, like Des said, they all got so much out of it. And it was very clear, I think, kind of by the end of the week, people were tapering out a little bit because it was just such a mentally rich week. They found that it wasn't so much physical, it was much more mental effort.
Yeah, that was something that we heard a lot. Like, I am just mentally exhausted. And we're like, yes,
we understand.
that means we're doing something right. So that's absolutely the way it was. And, but for all of us, I think, a lot of people, Wranglers included, had a lot of big turning points this week. I know we kind of brought up the eggs and crackers thing. We didn't go for it. I still have plans for that. But I think I'm going to start with my Wranglers and interns as soon as I get a chance to do a little bit of one-on-one writing with them. Right now, we're just like knee-deep in projects. We've got a whole crew working on yards. We got to clean up pastures before horses go into them.
Yeah. We've got everything is getting green. So horses will be headed out here pretty soon.
Yeah, they're gonna be happy about that. But we've got cattle showing up on May 4th, so that's Saturday, I think, next week. So we got to get around all the pastures, get around fences, get all the waters turned on, get pastures cleaned up for horses, get so much stuff going on. I mean, it's going to be a big load.
It's a process.
Yeah, and then getting through, 80 head of horses, shoeing them in 4 days. That's a tall order. But these guys get her done, and then we've got another group of guests showing up on the 11th.
Yep.
Right? Mm-hmm. So, yeah, we taking little breaks, but mostly we're just going to be hustling between now and then.
Yeah. And this past guest week was neat because for those of you who haven't joined us, we have a few new faces on the crew. Liz and Lainey, who are our working interns for this season. It was really neat because they just kind of hopped right in. Sammy went to Scotland this last week for a friend's wedding, so she'll be getting back here pretty soon, but it was a good week to just kind of get everybody in the program and really a good time. And I think Sammy's got a fun project she's kind of working on once she gets back.
Yeah, so we haven't mentioned, I don't think we've mentioned this in the Highline yet. I'm not sure if Sammy has or not, but I've been sharing it with each group of guests that comes, the print version, but Brenda actually wrote a children's book story. What is she called?
Hadley and the Toad.
Hadley and the Toad. So it's kind of based, the muse for the story is my little horse Hadley, and he's just, everybody that Hadley meets is in love with him because he'll just like if you walk through the pasture, he'll lead you up to the arena. He's always standing at the gate to be caught. He's just a total lover. So, Brenda wrote a children's book, and it takes you through all the emotions. You'll be laughing, you'll be wanting to cry. It's really cool. And what's neat about it is it's like one in a series of, her plan is to have like 5 books. She actually is just finishing up the copy for the second book. I'm really excited to read it. I haven't read it yet. But this first book, it's written, the layout's done. Sammy has been working her butt off before she left for Scotland, and she'll probably be able to finish it this coming week. She's doing all of the illustrations for the book.
Really fun.
Watercolor,
Yeah.
really beautiful. And so hopefully we'll have it available for you guys to purchase if you want to by, gosh, I hope within a month.
Yeah.
At least, if not sooner.
And it's really neat too because it's not just a typical kids horse story. It has little hints of this horsemanship in here, and I think it'll build really nicely because Hadley's buddy Rip appears in the next story. So I think it'll be a really cool little series.
So yeah, that's we're super excited about that. And then, this we always want to include, because we love to talk about it, some of the horsemanship thoughts and philosophies that we took away from this week. And kind of in line with the eggs thing. I mean, I really made a point this week, because we were down Sammy, and Jen was really kind of helping Noah to get on page filling in for Sammy. So we only had 9 guests, so she just fed me all the horses in the morning. I rode all of the guest horses. And so I also, when I was done with that, because I got done so quick, was able to add in, several more that we just have so many that still need to be legged up, that just need a little bit more refinement before I turn them back over, because I want them all to be perfect. So, or as much as they can be. But I really made a point on these morning rides to just not break any eggs, to just see how quietly I could get everything done. And I told the guests a story this week that has always stuck with me, this visual that I have in my brain. And I feel like this week I achieved that visual more than I probably had in the past. This ideal, I still have a heck of a long way to go. Obviously, there's no end to the refinement of the refinement of the refinement. But several years ago, when I was at Buck's clinic in Spanaway, Washington, I remembered we had gone through almost the whole 3 days of the clinic. And there was one of the clinic participants that was on this mare. And I think Buck had even had one of his guys work this horse. I don't think they rode it, but they might have groundworked it a little bit, helped the lady out. But she just had a heck of a time with this horse the whole clinic. It was just nervous, kind of squirting around, bouncing off the walls, just troubled, head high. And the lady she was doing everything that she knew how to do. She was doing her very best, but still the horse was pretty troubled. And I think at this point too, I think it even got more troubled at one point in Spanaway. It can rain like a mother. And it was just pouring on this tin roof, just like so loud inside. I can't remember for sure, but I think that was happening too. And that just made things even worse. But towards the end of maybe the last hour of this clinic, Buck asked that lady, would you mind if I rode your horse? And the lady's like, oh my God, sure. So I was just like glued. I wanted to see this. I'm like, oh my gosh, what is this going to look like? I've never seen Buck ride a horse other than his own. I've never had that opportunity. So I was just like totally all about it. So I think he resaddled it with his saddle and headstall and stuff. And he got on, and I expected that I would see, some big thing. I don't know exactly what I was expecting, but I was like, what is he going to do to fix this horse? And literally what I took away from it, he got on that horse And the horse didn't, the horse actually, like, instantly, it just looked like one of his horses. Like, you would have never known that the horse had any issue. The little subtle things that Buck was doing just to get her balanced and comfortable in her own skin, like, I was like, so it just in my mind, I was like, so that's it. So when somebody is really at like the peak of their game in their horsemanship, you wouldn't even know that the horse had a problem. They're fixing any issues, but you can't even see that they're fixing it. It's just, it's like, I don't know, this flow state.
That's so good. Yeah.
And I always took that away, and I always kind of worked towards it. But me and Noah had a talk this week about being softer with the horses, how it translates to humans, so on and so forth. And he brought up a good point, and he said, it's just not in human nature that when you feel pressure, so to speak, think about a interaction with another human. If somebody comes up and spits in your face, are you going to give them a hug, or are you going to be like, you SOB, let's do something about this? So, but the thing about so this goes totally against human nature that, say I get on a horse and I reach for that horse, and they're just like, I'm not going to reach for you. I'm just going to lean on this rein. Well, the inclination would be, put enough pressure on that the horse gets off that rein and you can, start working through whatever. But what I'm really starting to feel and explore is like, when you feel the pressure, it's actually at the point where you need to soften. And you have to do something totally different than what you've done. So, the quote comes in my head, Sally Swift, fight less so you can flow more. And I think it's so applicable that if you mentally tell yourself, I'm not going to pull, I'm not going to add more pressure, then your brain has to think, then what will make this work in a softer way? And it's just subtle things, just changing the balance here or there, shifting the weight here or there. Lots of rewards, lots of breaks. And literally, it's hard to describe with words. It's probably impossible to describe with words the feel of it. But my rides went pretty darn quick, Jen. But I got everything done. But it was just so quiet. And I could, it's also in human nature to be like, well, gosh dang it, why wasn't I doing that the whole time? And the other quote, I put it in the email to the staff earlier in the week.
Maya Angelou.
Yeah. Oh, here it is. Forgive yourself for not knowing what you didn't know before you learned it. And, you can't teach a feel. You got to feel it. And you have to be open enough to feel it. And the thing about developing a feel, being able to feel more, like if you have, for example, if you're angry, anxious, stressed, no different than with a horse, that takes you out of a learning, creative state of mind. You really gotta be where your mind is clear and untroubled. I mean, to an extent, you if you're angry, if you're thinking about other things, you probably won't be able to get into that flow state.
Yeah.
That's not to say that you have to be perfect and everything needs to be perfect in your life to get along with the horses, because that's not even possible. But it just means that when you're on the horse, you're absolutely present and open. because all these other emotions will block out the ability to really feel and get creative and say, this isn't working. What might make this work? And then your brain starts to work. And then that's why eventually, like what we say, it's more mentally tiring. It's more mentally tiring to be like, whoa, stop, redirect, figure out a different way to get this done.
And I think oftentimes too, when we hit a spot where it requires more effort of us, we are inclined to think, okay, this is no way the avenue in which I need to go, because it takes more effort, or it is a little bit more challenging, or it takes more time. But something where the amount of effort required really shouldn't be indicative of whether or not it's worthwhile. Because like in Dez's case of what she's talking about, it's so worthwhile to have to say, okay, stop, let's get creative, let's find another avenue, let's think about not breaking our eggs. And I think so often we turn our backs on things because we're not inclined to think that the effort is a good thing, but rather something that should deter us, when really it's something that should indicate this is something to lean into.
Yeah, and it's just that, they call that a growth mindset. And so this very much, I feel like, requires a growth mindset, because there is no end to it. And if you think something's hard now, wait till you peel off a few layers more. Some things might be easier, but the farther you get to the core, I think nothing gets necessarily easier, but I do think it gets more mental.
Mm-hmm.
The picture is so much more mental.
Yeah.
I don't want to say it's all in the mind. It's got to be like a whole body. It's spirit. It's soul. It's, I don't want to get all frou-frou, but I mean, come on. If you guys have felt it, So that's kind of the gist of my thoughts for the week. One thing that we talked a lot to the guests about this week was, something with our program that, can be initially tough for people is there is a high expectation, and that's not to say, well, you're going to have to figure this out. It's not that. We know what our horses are capable of. We know what we teach. We know what we're successful at. And we know our success rate for getting people to the other side of things. Mm-hmm. So in that sense is what I'm talking about as far as high expectation. But with high expectation, we have high support. So we've got, so much feedback, so many different tools, so many different exercises. And that's just from Shane, from me, from Jen, Noah, Brenda, Sammy when she's here, Liz and Lainey. Those are our human teachers, but I mean, how much also think about the high support that you get from each horse you ride here. Each horse you ride here is teaching you something. And I think that can be kind of a means of people getting stuck sometimes if they're on a horse. Sometimes they're like, well, I need to teach this horse this. Mm-hmm. And they spend less time thinking about what can this horse teach me about what I can offer him.
Yeah, no, that's a really good way of putting it.
And I think if you just kind of shift the mindset, it makes you so much more open, and then it kind of opens up that creativity a little bit.
And you can even tell, because we have some teachers that some horses in the herd and the string that are really good teachers at specific things. And oftentimes the guests that really benefit in a special way from those horses are those that are like, okay, my stop to my backup is just not quite working. What do I need to change to be able to give him something that we're successful together on? And that mindset of, okay, what feedback is he giving me so that I can change, or what do I need to change about how I ask, or the quality of my soft feel, how I pick up my soft feel. And then that seems to translate through the week as well when they ride other horses that are assigned to them, which is kind of a neat deal. But that perspective of, okay, what can I learn from you? So that, and Des always says, how can I learn from this ride to be better and have something better to offer the next horse I ride?
Yeah, and it's something like just as simple or basic as backing up a horse. We'll have people sometimes that be like, well, this horse just doesn't like to back. He's just not good at backing, which isn't the case. It's more what it means more so is that this horse requires more feel. He's requiring a higher level of feel for this backup. Not that he's not good at it or he doesn't like it. None of the above. They can all float back without pressure. That's the key word. Like, if a horse is used to being able to get back without pressure, and then you say, well, with pressure's the way we're going to do it, he's going to be like, hey, buddy, you don't need to do this much for me. So you might not be as responsive to it. So that's what we're talking about, in the most basic sense. And yeah.
We got a lot of good stuff coming up. We're going to be busy.
Got a lot of ponies to ride, a lot more horses to get legged up. Geez Louise, we've got the 2 guest weeks. We got Tommy coming. We've got roping and branding in between. So we've got 182 head coming in. They're all coming from the same place. They're really neat cattle. Last year our cattle kind of were a bit piecemeal and some of them were pretty wild, but these guys all came from the same place. They're really even, real quiet, really nice cattle from this ranch. And yeah, let the games begin, right?
Yep. Here we go.
Here we go, man. Oh, it's also sad to say, you guys, but we are entering 2 very fun seasons. Mushrooms, we got morel mushrooms starting to pop up. So that's like a big side hustle of mine. And then this other one is exciting, but not in a good way. Mushroom season also indicates the beginning of tick season.
Woo!
Which I'm deathly afraid of. So you gotta take the good with the bad, I guess. But yeah, it's getting really freaking pretty and green out here. So that's what we got for this week. Those of you got any last thoughts?
Just happy to be here.
All right, you guys. We'll chat your ears off next week.
See you then.
See ya.